Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Sabi Sands here in South Africa. We are on Djuma private game reserve, and we are just moments away from arriving at a hyena den site. Now, we did try and come to this den site this morning, but the adults had already left. They were here, and when the adults move off, the cubs go into the burrows within an old termite mound, and that's the end of the show. It could well have changed by now. That was quite a few hours ago. It was probably about 7 hours ago that we were last here, and the adults normally do leave in order to get a bit of peace and quiet and get away from the youngsters, which can pester them throughout the day if they were to hang around here. So they typically just come in, nurse the cubs, and then move off to relax. The adults may well have come back though to continue nursing before heading out this evening, and there's only one way to find out, and that's to come here and have a look. To any of you who may be joining for the first time, welcome, and to all the regulars. And it's important to know that it is a live safari, so it's actually happening as we speak this very moment. And it is also interactive, so you can ask questions at any given stage, and to do that you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@WildEarthTV. Now sadly, I'm just going to stop here. The den site is still inactive, and within one of those two holes that Andrew is busy zooming into, you will notice that there's nobody lying up outside, and that's usually where the adults will lie while they nurse the cubs. You can even see some relatively fresh sign of animals walking around there. So the cubs will be in those two holes, and there's 3 cubs that we know of, 1 slightly older and 2 slightly smaller, but hopefully they will become active this afternoon, and I'm sure 1 or 2 of the other game drive vehicles will pop in here. If not them, we'll come back a bit later to see if anything's changed. But for now, we shall continue and look for something else interesting. Now, sadly, the mechanic working on our other vehicle has been having a hard time, and what we thought was the problem was certainly part of it, but not the problem as an entirety, and there's something else that's popped up now, so he's busy trying to tinker with that and hoping that he will have the vehicle up and running in time for tomorrow morning's drive. So apologies for that. We're also just as frustrated as you are, and would love to have 2 vehicles out on the ground. There are a lot of flies around here. There are a lot of flies around, but it varies from area to area and day to day.
It's not related to the hyenas being here?
No. You'll find the worst place for flies at the moment are waterholes, Andrew. So Andrew's been on leave for a couple of weeks and come back and realised that the flies have become a bit of a problem, and they really have over the last few weeks. So they're keeping us guessing. Nikki's in final control this afternoon, and just to let you know, she really enjoys all of you that before the drives are sending tweets from all around the world, various cities, saying hello and what the weather's like, and it is just great to know where all of our viewers are spread across the globe, so thanks for that. And it's also nice for us, Nikki does relay it to us and tells us that there's people watching from all these different cities. Left or right? We shall go right. Actually, we'll go left. So, you would have noticed I was quite indecisive there as to where to go, and that's probably because there weren't too many sightings this morning, and usually you kind of build off what you know happened in the morning as a base for your afternoon drive, but not much has happened, so it's always a lottery out here, but this afternoon's especially so, because we don't really know too much of what went on last night, and we don't know where all the animals have gone. But that makes it exciting, and now we can try and track them down, and the surprise of finding new animals, not knowing that we're not expecting to see them as a rush that is actually often better than going to a confirmed sighting of an animal that has been found by somebody else. So we have that to look forward to. Go ahead. Kathleen in New York, good afternoon and welcome. I presume you weren't on the morning drive, and I should have mentioned that and recap that the hyena have moved from their original den site where they've basically spent the months of February, March up till now, and it was just probably in the last few days that they've moved across to this current den site, which is one that they did actually use in November and December when we were initially filming them. So they do chop and change between their den sites, and at the moment they've just moved back to the one we poked our nose into now. Now you would have noticed that those were mainly females of very young males in the majority of that herd, but now Andrew is panning across to a large male who's trailing behind this herd, and he's a bit too early, so this is for ego more than anything else, because the rutting season hasn't actually kicked in, so female impala will not be mating yet, and therefore him following them around at the moment, like I say, may purely be to boost his ego. He's not actually got a role to play here. But on the next full moon we could expect, or there and thereabout, we could expect the male impala to start fighting very aggressively with one another, competing for territories, and within good territories, naturally, females will gravitate towards those areas, and then males who own these territories will have rights to mating. So these ladies are going to have a lot of attention from... Oh, he's just started. This is the first time we might be able to show you him rutting, and he is going to come back out. Listen. This is awesome. I hope he comes back. I'm sure he will. And here's another man on the right. Let's try and get on him. So there's a few males lurking around. Sadly, the one male that ran off was obviously doing it in thick vegetation, and he was also a little bit far away, so I don't think you would have been able to hear their funny gurgling, burping roar that they let off when they are competing with one another. But again, he wasn't doing it to the degree that they will be doing it when they are in full rut, so they're kind of warming up to it. Nikki says she could hear it faintly in the final control, so you may have heard some strange noises. That was from the impala. And I'm just going to wait here a moment or two. They may come back and chase one another through the small open clearing in front of us, so it's worth hanging around for because it's entertaining watching them. I can still hear the remnants of them chasing one another around. So, and now that this other male has moved into the block where there were another two, that may add a little bit of heat to the equation and cause things to pick up again. A dangerous time for male impala, because running through thick vegetation like you can see, leopards can creep up to them very easily, and while they're so concentrated on what they are doing, and that's competing with one another, they forget of the potential risks that are around them, and you often find lion and leopard getting easy meals. going to creep forward ever so slightly, and then we will continue to wait. So I'm fairly certain these males will come back, and hopefully in the small open clearing Andrew will be able to get some footage of them chasing one another. Okay, I'll stop here. So Andrew can see one coming back. Go ahead, Nikki. Just got a question through from Tula in Finland. Good afternoon, Tula, and welcome on board with us. Tula would like to know what season it is here, because it's spring over there, but it looks awfully dry here. And you're right, it is awfully dry, but it is our autumn, you could say. We are heading into winter, but we don't have clearly defined seasons. The kind of summers just roll into the winters, so our autumn and spring is usually not very noticeable. But it is dry now, and it's abnormally dry because we didn't get as much rain as we would have hoped to get this summer. So it's a little bit drier than it should be at this time of the year, and this may mean some tough times for animals like the impala and the other herbivores. So, this male's now returned to the herd, but like I say, I very much doubt that he will be getting any opportunities to mate. The female impala will all mate in a very short window. And what this does is it means that they basically flood the market with youngsters when they give birth. And by flooding the market, it ensures that predators can only feed on so many of them when they are very small and vulnerable. And therefore it lessens the impact of predators on small impala. If they were to give birth over a staggered period, it would allow the predators to target the newborns as they are born each day over that 3-month period, for example, and that way it would create a much bigger dent in the young impala's populations. Afternoon, Aubrey. I've checked the Mnisikaya, it's not active, and no other updates that I've copied. Okay, well, we're going to leave these impala to it because, like I say, in the coming weeks we can expect a lot of good action from them. Go ahead, Nix. Just got a question through from Geza. Good afternoon, Geza. And Geza would like to know if there's any chance that the hyena have moved back to their original den. There is, of course, a chance because anything is possible out here. But I find it highly unlikely that they would have already moved back after only having been here a few days. So this male here, you can see, is also showing signs that we are coming into the rutting season. And he's rubbing his orbital glands, just small scent glands around the eye. Now what is this impala alarm calling it? Has it seen a leopard? What has it seen? If it has seen a leopard, that would be great. Now we're just trying to keep an eye on the direction they're looking in. But it could just be that it's windy and that their testosterone is beginning to increase as they do get closer to the rats. And in the wind they will be very nervous because the approach of predators is muffled by the noise of leaves rustling and even the movement of the leaves can scare them. Just seeing the... Well, what is it? Surely there might be something here. But I think they just saw a small bush that even actually looks a little bit like a leopard. It's a dead bush that I even double checked. Who knows? We will still keep our eyes peeled, and I'm actually going to stay with them for a few more moments. But I think it was just, I can actually show you the bush that I think it was that they were looking at. You see down through there, Andrew, there's that like kind of, yeah. There you can see as we go past. But the wind makes the prey animals nervous. So these males, even though in a few weeks they're going to be competing fiercely with one another, they still realize the benefits of safety in numbers, and it certainly increases their likelihood of not being caught by being in these groups with extra eyes and ears. Go ahead. We've just got a question through from Toby in Wisconsin. Oh, look at that male at the back there. He's really giving his orbital glands a serious rub on that little cluster leaf. And the eyes will continue to blacken with the liquid that comes out as they scent mark on bushes. Now this other male is going to also mark his territory. Let's see if they're not going to get a little bit excited and chase one another. Come on. Now a third on the same bush. I think it's a combination here of a display of strength as they hit the bushes from side to side, but they will also be rubbing their orbital glands as they go. No, you don't want to mess with one of these boys. An impala in the rutting season. Yeah, you look mean. He's like, okay, enough now. Great. Well, it's wonderful that we're seeing all these signs of them coming into the rutting season, rather than just one day showing you them chasing one another around at full steam. So these are just the initial stages, and you can look forward to some serious action as the weeks unfold. But for now, they're just building up momentum. So back to Toby's question. Toby has noticed that it is very dry, and would it be likely to get bushfires here from lightning strikes, or just simply people being careless with fires or runaway fires? And yes, there certainly are fires in the Sabi Sands, and they can be caused by lightning strikes, which they often will be, but that's typically towards the end of winter, when our first summer rains come through, and with those electrical thunderstorms that bring in the first rains, lightning strikes. Ooh, there's a beautiful bird here. Please, can it stay? No, it won't. It's not one that usually does hang around, but we're going to hunt it down. No, it's teasing us. So yes, indeed, we do have fires, and in my 3.5 years in the Sabi Sands, before starting again with Wild Earth here, we had many fires, some caused by lightning and others caused by runaway fires that were supposed to be controlled, or lodges burning down and then setting the reserve alight. There's obviously different ways that a fire can start, but yeah, fires are a reality, and it is scary fighting fires out in the wilderness, because especially if they happen at night, you can really get into some hairy situations, as when you're fighting the fires, you're in an area with so many dangerous animals. I remember one night fighting a fire. Actually, it was in the Kruger Park, not in the Sabi Sands, but we had parked the vehicle and we were jumping off with fire beaters. So it's essentially a really strong broomstick or pole with a big rubber mat on the end of it, and you'll go up to the fire and beat it at the base with this big mat, and that suffocates the fire and can be very effective at putting out fires. So there was a team of us with these beaters that were heading towards some flames, and we didn't want to park the vehicle too close to the flames in case that fire picked up and burnt the vehicle. So we probably had 100 meters to walk. It was fairly open, but it was dark, and I just heard these pounding footsteps coming towards me, and I stopped and just kept still, because that was all I could really do. And then I saw a huge rhino come running past me, and thankfully it was just running away from the fire, and it was on a slightly different course to me. But those are the kind of things that happen when fighting fires out here. I'm hoping we won't have any until, in all likelihood, late winter going into summer, when it is mainly lightning strikes that will cause the fires to start. But it is natural, and it's one thing that is difficult to manage. Even though we are part of a massive ecosystem, it can be very difficult to manage fire, which used to occur naturally on natural cycles and is necessary to burn out old dead plant life and create space for new life to come through. So depending on the vegetation and the biome that you're in, fire may be necessary once a year. In other areas it may be necessary once every 5 years. Either way, it can be difficult, because now we as humans have to try and get involved and burn certain patches at certain times, and those fires that are started either as controlled burns or burning fire breaks sometimes get out of control. And that, I guess, it's probably 50-50 lightning to man-made fires that contribute. Go ahead. Just got a question through from Charlie. Afternoon, Charlie, and welcome. Charlie would like to know whether the horns of impala can be used in their defense against predators. And they certainly could be used, but sadly, the impala don't know their own strength and actually don't use their... I'm not sure what I can see there, and I'm just going to double check with my binos. They don't realize that their horns could provide defense to themselves against predators, and therefore only ever run away from them. I've never seen an impala attack any animal. So it's just, as you say, Charlie, for intra-species competition. There's just a termite mound, a very small one, out to the left there that I thought may have been something interesting like a leopard. So here we are at Treehouse Dam, and it's a place where we have found numerous leopards, but it doesn't look like that is the case necessarily this afternoon. Not right now though, that could change in half an hour and a leopard could pop up here. Or there could simply be one here that we have just yet to see. One thing I can assure you is that as the vegetation does dry up, it is becoming easier to spot leopards. However, there is one kind of twist to that tail. Even though it's becoming clearer and we can see further into the bush, the coloration is more suited for leopards' camouflage now. As in summer, when everything's bright green, their gold coat can stand out, whereas now there's a lot of golds and oranges that help them to blend in. Oh, nice. Well spotted, Andrew. Now, these are such awesome animals to watch, and we sadly don't often have them hanging around like this, and it's great when they do. No, has this one gone into a small cavity in the tree? I think it may have. Or has it simply just gone around onto the other side? Either way, you'll notice that part of the tree that Andrew zoomed in on contains a lot of mud. What I'm going to do is... Oh, sorry. I'm just going to jump out and give you an idea of how high that mud is up the tree. And it goes much higher than me, so you can take a guess as to what animal you may think that is. It's an animal that's very tall and likes covering itself in mud. And I'm just under 6 feet tall, so that'll give you an idea of how tall the animals are that were rubbing themselves on that tree. And it would have been elephants that have come down to the dam on our right hand side, and it is here where they would have churned up the mud with their feet. There's currently just some buffaloes lying here at the dam, but the elephants would have churned up some mud with their feet and thrown it all over their body before coming and rubbing themselves up and down these marula trees. This one was perfectly bent for the job. Well, these buffalo bulls are local characters at the waterholes at this time of the year and spend a lot of time here relaxing, just chewing the cud or ruminating. And go ahead, Nix. Susie in California. Good afternoon, and I hope all is well in California and that you're having a great day. Susie would like to know whether the snake populations of this area will slow down in their activity in the coming months as we do go into the winter, and they certainly will become less active, but certain species actually will mate in winter. The puff adder is one that comes to mind, and it is a snake that we saw just probably a week ago, and had such a great sighting. Such a great sighting of this puff adder. And well done, Andrew. So there's this brown bird popping along the road here, and it's got a very distinctive orange eye, and lets off a very loud call. And they're all coming down, which is great. They're usually quite secretive, and we don't get to see them very often, or at least certainly not out in the open. And what they're doing is busy digging through the buffalo dung, looking for any insects that may be trying to feed on it, I guess. And we'll notice these changes in animals' behavior as we do get into the winter. Because food becomes more scarce, animals have to start changing their habits a little bit, and this is a great example. These birds are typically quite shy and seldom seen out in the open, yet now, as food begins to already dwindle, they are mixing things up a little bit. Well done there, Andrew. And those were arrow-marked babblers. I was going to possibly quiz you on as to which bird it was, but I felt they didn't provide you with the best view to be able to identify them. I'll just stop and spend a few moments with this buffalo. We've got a few oxpeckers on them, the closest one to us. Well, they all appear to have a few oxpeckers. Sorry, Andrew, I keep... Go ahead. Sorry, Nick's not copying it. So they're all busy doing exactly the same thing, and that is chewing the cud. So they've got a 4-chambered stomach, and they will very efficiently process their food. And that's why when you do look at their dung, it's a very fine mush that you cannot tell exactly what it is they've fed on, because they've broken it down so effectively. Elephants, on the other hand, are not ruminants and have a very poor digestive system, so you can almost see exactly what it is they've been feeding on. So just like cows, the buffaloes will chew the cud. And while doing so, the oxpeckers will also be looking for some food, and that's right on the buffalo that we can see. So these little birds are looking for parasites. Very useful for the buffalo, as they are providing him free service. Oh, and here's another one that's come to join in the feeding frenzy. So just to let everybody know, two things actually. Firstly, Mark will be returning tomorrow afternoon to start work on Friday, so we're looking forward to having Mark back. And Brent will be leaving on Friday just for a few days though, to go to a wedding. So a few small changes in terms of the crew that you can expect over the next couple of days. And also just a reminder to those of you who have yet to hear, we are changing our Safari Live schedule ever so slightly, and that is to coincide better with the changing season and go out at more optimum times than what we currently are doing, because we're kind of working off a summer schedule now in terms of the times we're heading out. So basically, as of tomorrow, we will be heading out at 6:30 a.m. Central African time, so half an hour later basically than what we currently are doing. And in the afternoons we'll be heading out at 3 p.m. Central African time, which basically means we'll be heading out an hour earlier than we are currently doing. So half an hour later in the morning we start, and we start 1 hour earlier in the afternoon, but it's still a 3-hour broadcast for both drives, unless of course we find something interesting, and then we, just like we always have, will extend. So just to let you know that, and I'm looking forward to those changes in times, because it will, I think, get us out there at better stages of the afternoon to be exploring, and also the morning. Well, you'll notice the weather is still overcast, so nothing's changed today, and the only thing that we would have liked to have happened is for there to have been a little bit of rain, of which there has been none, sadly. But it's nice and cool for us. The wind's died down now, but it could simply be that we're in a bit of a valley here. But it is strange, when it's windy and overcast, everything seems to kind of hide away. I wonder where all of the animals go, but it does often tend to be quieter. I think it's the wind that's the main issue. Go ahead. Okay, well, Nikki's just mentioned that there's quite a few people that are interested in what may happen to the crocodile that's at Buffelshoek Dam. Well, some of you may already know this, but we feel that the crocodile has moved off from Buffelshoek Dam. We haven't seen it for the last few times we were there, and there was also tracks of a crocodile seen fairly far from that dam, but he would have had to travel a long way to get to the dam in the first place, the crocodile that we have been viewing for the last few weeks. So I do intend on heading up there this afternoon, and we can have a look for ourselves, but the last time I was there was no sign of the crocodile at the dam. And therefore, I guess that answers your question. Even though it hasn't dried up yet, for whatever reason it is, the crocodiles decided to move on, and they can cover large distances on land, so they will simply move when they need to. Another thing crocodiles could do in extremely dry areas is actually estivate, so basically go into a state of dormancy when it's very dry, and they can do that in caves or small banks in the waterhole, or near the dams or riverbeds where they've been. And they can basically switch their body off for months on end, without feeding, without doing anything. We are just so close to these go-away birds. I didn't see them until the very last minute, but the one, thankfully, has stayed for us. And isn't this a beautiful sight? You've got to wonder how they managed to keep that crest so perfectly intact out here with all of the dirt and little burrs that could get stuck on it. Beautiful. So this is the grey go-away bird, and they're called go-away birds because their sound rings out as if they're saying go away. It goes something a little bit like this. Quack!
Like how?
Like quack! And there's a few other go-away birds that you do get in further north, up into East Africa and other parts of Africa. But there's just the grey go-away bird that we get here in the Kruger National Park, and then a few of their cousins, which are called turacos. Now their cousins are often far prettier and far more brightly coloured than the go-away birds, but they are very similar, and actually used to both be called luries. So that used to be called the grey lurie, and now it has changed to a grey go-away bird, and what used to be called the purple-crested lurie has now become a purple-crested turaco. So the birding world likes to keep changing names and mixing things up, so you very often may know the name of a bird, but it may not be the correct name for the current period, as the names do change. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, so it's not touching you clearly. Copy, we'll just stand by a moment then. How's it before? How's it, Texan? Hello everyone, very good. Very, very good. Where are you headed? I'm going to follow you.
Yeah. Garmin, I will come back inside the middle of
Okay, cool.
I'll call you if I find something.
Thank you very much. Good luck. I'll slowly head up to Buffelshoek Dam, I think, is my plan.
You're going to go Nyala then?
Nyala Road, yeah.
I'll go. I'll see.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone. That was our friend Texan, who is one of the guides for Djuma, my show, so we often rely on him for finding us animals, and that's why I just made a joke with him that I'm going to follow him around this afternoon. Just driven down the very road that we are driving up, which I guess is not ideal because it's just been checked, but there's nothing to say that any animal parts at any given second are thick with us. got a question through from Karen in Texas. She's interested to know whether it's just a myth that rhino have been known to actively try and put out fires. And as far as I'm aware, that doesn't add up. It could well have happened on one rare occasion somewhere that was documented, but I find it highly unlikely, and the only time I've ever seen a rhino next to a fire, it was running away from it. So it certainly wasn't aiding in the firefighting that evening. And yeah, when you think about it, I mean, a rhino is not equipped to, in terms of its brain capacity or even the tools to try and put out a fire. That's not to say though that a rhino hasn't been confused before and caught in a fire and seen stomping all over. There was a tiny little bushbuck that ran across the road. I don't want to even move a muscle and see if Andrew can somehow get a view of it in there. Oh, well done, Andrew. So you can see it in there, and if it just takes a few steps forward, it is going to pop into a little clearing. So we're just going to wait. It's a really cute antelope, and we don't get to see many bushbuck.
He thinks we can't see him.
Exactly. I wonder where your mother is. Where's your mother? Occasionally, the leopard and or lion will catch adults and their young will be stranded. Now, I'm certainly not saying this is the case, but it is why I am already thinking, is there not a bushbuck kill nearby, and this youngster has therefore been orphaned. We saw something very similar with an impala in January last year. I'm fairly sure it was January. And Karula, a female leopard, had killed an adult female impala, and the young baby impala was hanging around very close to where its mother had been killed, hoping to find its mother again. And it was the next day that the leopard then heard this baby impala calling its mother, and it instead attracted the leopard, which came and killed it too, which I guess was good in a way that it put it out of its misery, because it would have starved anyway. Just going to roll forward ever so slightly. Oh, that's a bit better. But this bushbuck appears a bit too small to be all on its own. Well, I think this little bushbuck is terrified about having us on, and there it goes. We'll just keep a very close eye out for anything abnormal here, because unless it was behind its mother, which I find unlikely because then it would have been more prone to follow down the river, and the mother has not followed the youngster from behind, it kind of is making me feel like something doesn't add up. Look, maybe its mother had been killed by a leopard but days ago, and it's managed to survive and move away from where it did lose its mother. Who knows? I'm certainly going to have a very close look around here, and the best place to look would be up in the trees for the kills, which may be dangling there. haven't explored this little section of riverbed for a while now, so we may as well just head down here and see if we don't find anything interesting. There's one more large jackalberry tree that would be a perfect place for a leopard to hang out. So we'll check there quickly. Failing that, we'll turn around and continue up to Buffelshoek Dam and see if there's any sign of the crocodile still there or anything else along the way. One of my favourite places to drive through these riverbeds. Okay, well this little riverbed does turn into a dead end up ahead, so we won't go all the way because it gets a little bit tricky turning at the end of that riverbed. All good there. So it's not going to be easy, but a parrot has just landed up in this tree and Andrew's just zooming in on it. Well done, Andrew. Great work. So like I said, not the best visual, it's a bit far away, but you can certainly tell that it is a parrot, judging from that short curved beak. And even its posture and body shape, albeit fairly well obstructed by a branch in the foreground at the moment. This is a brown-headed parrot, the only parrot we get in this area, and we don't get to see them often. That's why I did stop in a hurry as I saw it land in this tree. The best sighting I remember was watching one drink at Twin Dams just a few weeks ago. And we actually saw it 2 days in a row, maybe not the same one, but we saw one of these brown-headed parrots drinking in the afternoon as well as the morning. We'll leave this one to it though, because it's not very close by. Good work on camera there, Andrew. Just something for all of you to bear in mind. Probably the trickiest thing for the cameraman is every time we stop, the vehicle is very often not flat or perfectly horizontal, and therefore the cameraman has to adjust the spirit level on the tripod, which takes a little bit of time. So it's not as easy as them just zooming in and pointing the camera at the animal. They have to level everything off and then start worrying about what to do next. Now we are just beginning one of my favorite roads on the property, and that's more because of scenery than sightings that I've remembered seeing on this road. We haven't had too many sightings off this road. One of Djuma down on the riverbed up ahead, he had a bushbuck kill that Brent found. Other than that, there hasn't been a great amount of sightings here, but I just love the scenery and the way the road weaves from side to side. Go ahead. Just got a question through from Sandy in Palm City. Good afternoon, Sandy, and I hope all is well with you. Sandy is interested to know whether Kwatile, a female leopard that was on this property last night, has now moved off and back to her own territory, leaving Karula, the female who is dominant in this territory, leaving her territory essentially alone. And it's hard to tell. None of those leopards were located that I know of this morning. I did have tracks of one female leopard crossing out of our property, although I don't know whether that was Kwatile or Karula. So could have been either one, but I'm guessing that Kwatile would well have moved off. She didn't come here looking for a fight with Karula. She simply came here following Mvula, the large male that she was mating with. So I personally don't think there's anything to worry about then. I think Kwatile will be long gone for a while. We probably won't see her. Good question though. And sadly, we don't actually know where either of those two leopards ended up. How are the flies treating you?
I love it.
So good to hear that Andrew has already become great friends with the flies, so much so that he actually says he loves them. So clearly they're getting on very well. So great to have some of the local animals welcoming Andrew back here to work. And nothing like having a few flies buzzing around your face just to make you feel important. Okay, but seriously, back to business now. Let's find some animals. It is time to find something interesting. asked Nikki what she would like to see this afternoon before we headed out, and she requested a large herd of elephants. So that's from Nikki's request in the final control room, and I really would love to spend some time with some elephants too. Sadly, though, it seems they've all disappeared off of our property in the last few days, and we eagerly await their return, but there's been no fresh sign of them here on Djuma. It's nothing to be concerned about. They do come and go, and they aren't territorial. They've got massive areas that they roam through, and they basically go wherever they're feeling lucky with food. So like I say, no concern to the elephants. It's merely that they've moved off our property for a few days, and I'm sure we'll be back at some stage. Who knows? Maybe this afternoon. Maybe they're already back and we just don't know. But we haven't seen any fresh sign of them. So sadly, elephants are a tricky one to try and track down. But we are heading towards a waterhole now called Buffalo's Hook Dam, and we've had some great elephant sightings there over the last few weeks, and maybe they'll surprise us there this afternoon. It's risky, but Andrew's going for it. There's a heron flying off, but it's dropping down quite rapidly below the horizon, but he's just got it in time, and you can see those very characteristic long legs and coiled up neck of a heron in flight. Well done, Andrew. And it's always great having a cameraman on the back of the vehicle that points at something that he knows is going to be difficult to film, and then nods with a big smile on his face as he motions that he's going to go for it. And he pulled it off. So, well done, Andrew. Oh, well, it looks like we might have quite a cute sighting here. Anywhere. Has some patchy signal depending on the day, and it appears like it's one of those days. Now, these two Cape turtle doves were sitting right next to one another, huddled up. It was a really cute scene, but they've now spread apart a little bit, and we're now facing, oh, here they go. Are they going to snuggle up again? Come on, snuggle up. They really were tucked up against one another, keeping warm, and just as we stopped, they decided to do some preening. As you can see, the one continues to do it, but they are quite cold, and now they've ruffled their feathers up to create a thicker layer of insulation to keep them warm. I just want to give it another minute or two. I feel they might snuggle up with one another again. Oh, the loving little peck on the cheek there, it looked like. Wouldn't it be nice to know who's who? Who's the male, who's the female? Very difficult to tell. But the men are now picking up on the reason why we stopped to view them, and again, one's busy preening the other lovingly. It appears that the one that is being preened is not really appreciating it, rather. maybe the one who's doing the preening's got some making up to do.
It looks like a bit of tough love to me. It always fascinates me, like, why would one bird preen the other bird? Like, what's going through their head?
No, they care for one another. They do have some...
Shows something, you know?
Yeah.
Almost like altruism.
Okay, well, we'll leave them to it. It looks like the one's getting a little bit embarrassed now and is acting like nothing ever happened. So we'll leave the lovebirds. Good work there, Andrew. Now, like I said, the signal does get patchy through here, but it won't take us long to get through this area, so if the signal does cut out, don't go anywhere. It'll just be a few moments till we're on higher ground at Buffelshoek Dam, where we usually have no problem with the signal. It really is interesting how, depending on the day, the signal varies, but cloud cover obviously has an impact on that, I'm guessing. Today we'll use it as the excuse. And it's perfect timing. We're just about to arrive at Buffelshoek Dam. You didn't miss out on anything. Just a little bit of the scenery, I guess, which is beautiful. It doesn't matter where we are on this property. There's different scenery that caters to everyone's desire. Copy, no problem. Looks like Texan's also here, but he is making his way on. So we'll just stop behind where he's just checked. So it appears that Texan and I have got a similar idea of where we wanted to check this afternoon. Sorry, Andrew. So we'll just stop here for a moment and see what we can see from this part of the dam. And it's just two buffalo bulls and a lone hippo that I can see at a first glance. There'll no doubt be some water birds along the fringe of the water. Now I'm guessing this is the same hippo that frequents this waterhole. There's just been one that we are noticing here at Buffelshoek Dam at the moment, but that does change with time, and it was just a few weeks ago, maybe a month now, that there was a considerable amount of hippo in this dam. maybe about 10 or 12. But they've moved off, and again, it's normal for animals to start moving and searching for food as it becomes less and less. The hippo will be looking for grass. That is what they feed on. And they're nocturnal feeders, so they spend the day in the water, and the afternoons and early mornings into the evenings out on land grazing. Well, there's another reason why I would like to hang around in the northern section of our property, and that's because the Nkuhuma pride of lion have been seen heading towards our property, but still have a bit of distance to cover. But hopefully, if they do continue towards us, they may well pop in this evening, and it really would be wonderful to see some lion. And as you can see, no sign of the crocodile here, but that's not a problem because there's still one place to check, but I do fear that it may well have moved off, and that is sad because they're such wonderful animals to watch. And I was hoping it was going to provide us with some great viewing at this waterhole as it becomes more and more active. I've never personally seen a crocodile catching a large prey animal. I lie, I've seen crocodiles catching wildebeest in the Masai Mara as they cross those large rivers, but it's not difficult for the crocodile, and these massive crocodiles literally just swim up to the hundreds and thousands of wildebeest and zebra that are swimming across the rivers and grab onto them. But I've never actually seen one launching up and catching a prey item that is drinking, which is something that's always intrigued me. I've seen this very crocodile that was here catching something, but those were terrapins, the freshwater turtles that we get in the river systems and dams in this area. And it ate about 3 within 15 minutes that we were sitting here. But I was hoping to see it catch something a little bit more substantial. Well, it's incredible how peaceful and quiet So that was a very log-like, crocodile-like log that Andrew spotted, and definitely worth double checking, but I fear the tracks of the crocodile that were seen about a mile south of this waterhole was probably the same tracks of the crocodile that used to be at this dam. Now, there's been a few requests for the sound that a hippo makes, and because this one's not performing for us, I'm going to guess I'm going to have to act like a hippo, and I'm going to let off the noise that a hippo makes. It's a really interesting one, so get ready. It goes something a little bit like this. So I'm not sure if this hippo even twitched its ears in our direction. I was concentrating on the call. But that is the bizarre noise that you'll hear from hippo, and it is a wonderful call to hear. Very good questions come through, and I should have mentioned something. It appears like it's raining from all the little droplets you can see on the water, but they actually aren't droplets, they are bubbles that are surfacing from the activity going on underneath the water. So obviously there's a lot of life underneath this waterhole that we cannot see, and for some reason it's causing all of these bubbles to rise up from below, which gives the impression that it's raining, but it's actually not. Andrew for Scott. Well, seeing as though all is quiet at Buffelshoek Dam for now, we shall continue. And what I plan to do is do a loop around this general area, but I would like to stay up in the north, and the reason being is that the lion are close by. By close, I've been told they're just over half a mile away. One second, I've just heard quite an important update. Okay, copy. Texans found some female leopard tracks. But he's not sure whether they're from this afternoon or this morning. There's a whole family of hornbills here, but Murphy's Law, as soon as we try and zoom in on them, they decide to flutter off. There's still one or two floating around, and it's an adult with, or two adults with their offspring from the year. And this is one of the offspring. We can tell because its beak is still about half the size that it will be when it grows up. So this would have been born just a few months ago, or hatched rather, just a few months ago, in November or December in all likelihood. Go ahead. Question through from Norm. Afternoon, Norm. I hope you're well. Norm is interested to know why we don't see more bushbuck, and a good question. There's a few different theories. There's a lot of Inyala in this area, and Inyala can compete directly with bushbuck and outcompete them because they're slightly taller than the bushbuck, so they can feed on everything that the bushbuck can feed on and more. And this allows them to do well, and because there's more Inyala, it's more intense competition for bushbuck, so there's not the hugest population of bushbuck here, which is one reason why we don't see them very often. But another reason is simply because they do live in thick vegetation a lot of the time and are quite shy and secretive. So a few contributing reasons to that. But that's normal. You can't expect animals of every species to do well in every single area. There's certain habitats that they do very well in, and others not so well, and that's for all species across the board. Well, the one problem I fear we face with regards to the lion coming into our property this evening is that we've been feeding on a giraffe for the last 3 or 4 days, and are therefore now very that it's going to be later rather than sooner. But there still is a chance that they'll pop in before the end of drive. But just filling you on the likelihood of that.
Did you say the improvements took down a giraffe?
Sorry?
The improvements took down a giraffe?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you'll notice Andrew, he is quite surprised that the Nkuhumas managed to catch a giraffe. And it is very impressive. Giraffe are huge animals and dangerous to hunt. If you get kicked by a giraffe, it hurts and it could even kill you. So, tricky business for a lion. And also that, coupled with the fact that we don't get many giraffe here, means they don't get to practice very much. So, they are certainly not seasoned giraffe hunters, and very interesting that they managed to catch one. You can try.